Prof. Please welcome Sabrina Fiorellino, CEO of Faro International Inc. Lucia Iacovelli, Canadian Managing Partner, Tax and Legal, KPMG Canada. And finally, Christina Caniff, Vice President and General Counsel at Caniff Group. So great to have you all here. I mean, what a panel, right? Look at these incredible women. It's just so incredible to have with such forces on the stage with me tonight to talk about a few things. You know, I thought that the direction should be leadership, but also leadership in uncertain times, because as we know, the world has changed, there's a shift. But before we talk about that, I'll talk a little bit more with you about some of the things that you have experienced in your careers and some advice that you might have to share with us. But one of the things I found interesting is looking over numbers. You know, numbers don't lie, right? So we see time and time again that women as leaders are effective. Their businesses are profitable, their foundations are growing, their community is thriving, and yet there's always a little bit of a shift there, right? But what I want to ask in that is, what is it that makes women leaders effective? What do you think? What makes a woman leader effective in so many different ways?
Thank you for the opportunity to be here. It's wonderful to be the only Bulgarian amongst so many Italians.
You know, it's funny. She mentioned that, and we said, listen, our stories are so aligned, right? The whole story from start to finish, it's all aligned.
I think what makes women, I'm in the construction and development industry myself. I also went to York University, graduated from Osgoode Hall Law School. Shout out to Osgoode. I feel incredibly privileged to be in construction and development. It is still very much predominantly a male business, but I think participation of more women in our industry and vocal participation of that is what will make our voices be heard. And I think that's how leaders are built. I think girls are taught to be perfect and instead of being risk takers. And I think it's important to try, and that's where you learn resilience, and that's where you learn how to make mistakes. And the failures are what really molds you, boy or girl, but certainly for girls.
For yourself, Lucia, you know, you've been working in this industry for over 30 years, top in your industry in so many ways. What do you think makes a woman an exceptional leader?
Yeah, I think, look, there's a number of factors. I think one of the top factors is that I do believe that women bring their more human factor to their leadership. I think that they bring the empathetic lens to the leadership. I also think that women, just because of what we've had to go through in terms of the competition with the significant number of men at the top, is really the resiliency that we bring in terms of what we drive. And then it's the purpose-led leadership that we bring to the table.
So that kind of brings me to the next question, because we're going to kind of go around, is, you know, when you talk about effective leadership, you talk about how women in leadership roles and on their teams really make businesses thrive. There was a recent study that showed that women in senior leadership teams were 20% more profitable. It was interesting, Sabrina, with a conversation with you that, you know, in your company, you said in the last 5 years, that I believe that your company is what, over 304% growth in 5 years. And what's interesting, yeah, that's great, right? So you would think when Sabrina knocks on your door, you're going to listen, right? But it hasn't always been like that. So what is it that's missing? Why is the belief not there when you see it on paper?
Yeah, so the exact stats, Boston Consulting Group did a study, and they say that female-run businesses do 50% more revenue with 50% less funding. Like, that is an insane statistic. And yet, the percentage of female funding, the percentage of venture funding that goes to female is going down. It was 4% pre-COVID, it's around 2% now. And so it's nonsensical. I think there's still bias that exists. There's still people that way, especially in industries like me and Christina's in construction, it's very, very challenging. And it takes one person to believe in you. So I just want to give a shout out to Fendi here. They're our investors, and so really grateful that they took a chance on us and that we were able to deliver.
Thank you so much. It takes good partnerships, right? Good friends. But I'm curious to know, just so you can kind of impart that for those out there wondering, you know, when they knock on a door and they get turned away, how do you handle that? What's your approach?
Yeah, so when I was younger, it was really personal. It was like, oh, they don't like me. I did something wrong. What am I doing? Now I really don't give a crap. I think.
Love it. That's right.
I think one of the most important characteristics of leading is resilience. And it doesn't matter how many times someone says no to you, you have to keep going. You'll hear athletes say it. Michael Jordan will say, I missed 10,000 shots, but I got the game-winning shot. You got to keep taking your shot.
Beautiful. Can you all hear us in the back of the room? You can hear us, right? Perfect, perfect. So, Pina, you're also, she's a legend in this room over here. A legend, okay? How many kids do you have? How many? 4 kids. That's no small feat.
1 plus 3.
1 plus 3, incredible. But listen, one of the things that you've been involved with for a long time now, so we've got intellectual property, you're tackling AI. I want to ask you something specifically with AI, because I was surprised about this, but what impact can or does AI have on women entering the workforce or trying to advance in their profession? And I want to ask, is AI by any chance gender biased?
That's a good question. That's what we're studying as we speak. I mean, that table over there, Connected Minds. Hello? Really trying to advance socially responsible technology as a Connected Minds project to ensure that we don't have gender bias or any bias for that matter, because there is that risk. Really, it's all about the data. So if the data points are already skewed, which are perhaps masculinist, then that will tip the scales against women. So we need to ensure that the data is representative of the very communities they seek to address and serve in the workforce. We need to do that. So that's something that is close to my heart, lifting up women. One of my pet projects is the IP Innovation Clinic. And there, what we're trying to do is really advance women in business by ensuring that they are the owners of the intellectual property. So we've talked a little bit about this, and Christina, you mentioned the risk-taking. Well, the women, unfortunately, the stats bear this out. The women are the have-nots of the intellectual property system. And when we think about AI is all about the intangible economy. So guess who's owning that? It's not the women right now. So we need to do better. We need to fix this. And it starts with looking at AI as empowering. There are possibilities, but the term that's typically used are the guardrails. We haven't fixed those yet.
So how do we navigate that? How do we, at this point, is there a way that, someone in this audience or some women out there, how do we change that so that, we go under the radar in that respect?
It starts with leadership. So a forum like this, women leaders, women at the top, something like AI, it's a global phenomenon. So we do need nationwide responses, and we are waiting for, Canada has pronounced itself. We're waiting for new legislation to be tabled, which sets the vision, so that's the Visioning Act. And then all of us in industry, in education, in community, to look at what that means and how we embrace it and implement it and adopt it. So we don't just adopt it willy-nilly, but we think about what it means to our organizations.
How long is how long is that project going for?
It's amazing.
Years, right?
Okay.
A few years, right?
So
but when do we see, when does it?
I just came off my term as the scientific director, and I'm pleased that sitting at that table there is the incoming scientific director, also a woman.
Yes, there you go.
Shayna Rosenbaum, very smart neuroscientist and psychologist, and just everything Connected Minds. So we're in good hands because we have to think about future-proofing really Canada, society, and looking at educating the next generation.
So we're going to talk a little bit about the relationship of construction and women. It's one of those relationships, you know, like if it was a real relationship, you'd be on the sidebar saying, are they going to make it? I don't know, we'll see. We hope for the best though, right? But honestly, it's been trying, right? And it's funny because if you're not aware, she runs her company with her sister, and her mother. There's 3 of them running, right? Isn't that incredible? So I'm curious to know, you know, I know that it was an established business with your dad, and you guys have all kind of come up the ranks there and are just shining, but I'm still wondering, even with that, as a woman in the boardroom, did you face challenges, and what can you kind of impart in us that maybe for women out in this audience who perhaps want to get into a career in construction shouldn't be too afraid, and what did they do? It's a big question.
So first, I am leading a family business that was founded by a man. It was founded by a man that I am incredibly proud to call my father, my late father. So credit has to be given where credit is due. He came to this country and even less women were involved in the construction and development industry when he came to this country in the 50s. My sister, my mom, and I feel incredibly privileged that we're able to take over and on his legacy. I think that it is incredibly important to establish credibility, first and foremost. If you want to lead a company in construction and development, you have to profoundly understand the business that you're in, so that when you take meetings and when you meet industry leaders, you can show that you have an expertise of the subject matter. And I think that goes a long way, and that sort of levels the playing field. And participation also, as I said before, is really important. Taking risks and having confidence to pretend like you are as good as any guy out there. My dad always used to say to me, he said, there's a Bulgarian expression. It says, basically, the fish rots from the head. So I don't know if there's something similar in Italian, probably. We were on the same side of the 2 losing wars, so I'm sure we have very many similar idioms and sayings. But I think that as leaders, my mom, my sister, and I try to espouse the values that we try to instill in all of our staff members.
Just out of curiosity, when you say kind of like faking it, does that mean I have to know how to play that I know how to play golf? Would that help me?
You should learn how to play golf.
I heard it might be beneficial.
We own a few golf courses.
I know that. I know.
So if you'd like, you can take some lessons. Shameless plug.
You can play.
Yes, of course. It was mandatory as part of the Canada family training.
So, you know, Lucia, I wanted to ask you a little bit about leader efficacy, right? So I viewed this TED Talk, which I thought was really interesting, about the science of leadership. So they did a study with girls between the ages of 18 and 22, and they all scored high on leadership tests. Every one of them, they just scored high. But when they were asked, that same group was asked to lead, they're like, no, I can't do it. I can't do it. And one of the things the study showed was that there was this inherent belief by women, by girls at that age, that even though they have the tools, they just can't do it. So how do we instill confidence, Lucia, in young girls and women that when an opportunity presents itself, just go out and get it? How do we do that?
Yeah, look, I think that it comes in different ways, and I'm a big believer in that you've got to find yourself a circle. You've got to find that circle that's really going to boost you up and build that confidence in you. But look, as a leader, what I've done over the years is really focused on, one, providing a lot of my female teammates visibility in terms of their strengths and what they do. I also ensure that some of my junior teammates are connected with senior teammates, and I establish performance measures for those senior teammates to ensure that they're putting those junior too is when it comes to confidence, it's really about self-trust, right? And ensuring that you build that foundation. And it's a little bit of what Christina talked about, right? Is, somebody has to believe in you and know that you're knowledgeable and know that you know your craft. And so you've got to build that infrastructure in that craft to really come across and have that confidence. So I think it's a lot of that altogether.
So we talked a little bit about how this world is shifting, right? So last year there was this World Forum, and I heard this journalist, I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with her. Her name is Maria Reza. She's a Filipino journalist, maybe some of you are familiar with her. She's also a Nobel Peace Prize winner. She's quite the survivor if you ever want to hear about a story. Absolutely incredible. But she said something that really stuck with me. And it was that everything we have gained, we stand to lose. And that kind of scared me a little bit. But it really shows that, in most countries, what they were showing at this forum was that even in some of the most liberal democracies, there's a shift. Something has changed. Ideas have changed. Ideals have changed. So in your roles as a leader, maybe just a couple of words from all of you or thoughts. How do we as a community, how do we come together to protect women's progress in the face of a world where these views are changing? Who wants to take that one on? Sabrina?
Sure. I think we have to lead by example. If we say we're going to support women, we actually have to support women. There's a lot of female leaders that say, yes, we're pro women, but the numbers don't reflect that. I was at a event recently, and they said, well, if you can choose between a male service provider and a female service provider, are you choosing the male or the woman, if there's an option? So all of these things, at our company, I look at what we do. We're majority female owned, majority female at the board, majority female at the exec, and 20% of our direct labor is female in construction when the national average is 5. We're doing what we say we're going to do. We're supporting women, and if we don't do that, then things aren't going to change.
Love that. That's great. Anybody have a last word on that? Anybody want to say anything? Are we going to move on that one? Okay, so here we go. We're at our last question. And we're going to keep it very easy and for you. And I'm going to go down. Now each of you has to give me one, okay? Offer one word, offer one word of inspiration or guidance to all the women in this room on achieving and succeeding. What would that word be? Christina? One word.
I would say courage. Courage to take a risk and have confidence.
Beautiful word. Lucia?
I would say empowerment. I think as female leaders, we've got to draw the line, and we have to establish what we're willing to accept and what we're willing to say no to.
I will say, I said it earlier, resilience. I think it's one of the most important things, and I will give a quick shout out to Joy Knott from KPMG, who talks about Canada can be a superpower, but do we want to? And are the people in this room willing to stand up and do that and lead by that and be resilient? And so I think we can if we do it together.
Beautiful. And Peanut, the last word is yours. Oh.
No pressure. I would say integrity. Because in a world of deep fakes and where we can't tell what is real or not, the ability to stand up for oneself and remain authentic and true is what is going to take us into a more human-centered world, in a world with many technologies and noise out there.
Ladies and gentlemen, this wonderful panel. Incredible ladies, thank you so much. And love talking to you. Thank you. Let's stand up for a round of applause. We're going to take a photo. We're going to take a short break. Enjoy your meal.
you.